Welcome to Level with Emily Reese. Today's conversation is with Jeff and Angela Van Dyck about the game Unpacking. Now, Jeff also did the music for Unpacking, and the music is phenomenal. But Jeff and Angela are responsible for the 14,000 sound effects that you hear in Unpacking. Unpacking is a Zen puzzle game. You're literally just unpacking boxes as someone moves from place to place throughout their life, starting in childhood, and then you move to college, and then you move out of college, things like that. It's absolutely amazing. No dialogue, no indication of what the story is other than you learn that as you're unpacking someone's belongings. Of course that would happen. So it's absolutely brilliant game. But 14,000 sound effects. That's a lot of sound effects. So Jeff and Angela talk about how they accomplished that tremendous feat, along with keeping it organized and all of those things. It's really remarkable and so wonderful to chat with them. They've been in the video game industry since the 90s, the early 90s. So they had some stories. It was really fun to learn about their backgrounds and all of those things. One thing, the music, as I mentioned, the music for this game, phenomenal, composed by Jeff, and you won't hear any of that in this YouTube feature. You'll only hear that in the audio version of the podcast, which is how we really intend for you to consume our content, as it were. But make your way over to wherever you get your podcasts so that you can make sure you hear the wonderful music from this game as well. Please do subscribe here to the YouTube channel and come visit us on Discord, where we love to talk about this and all the other Level episodes. We love to talk about upcoming guests and things like that in our patron-only channel. There is a patron-only channel in the Discord, although Discord generally is free. If you want to join us on the Level with Emily server, we'd love to have you. Link down in the show notes, so that's where you can find that. Also, please do consider becoming a patron if you have the means. We would greatly appreciate your support. You can learn more about patron benefits and other things at patreon.com/level. All right, so back to Jeff and Angela. This interview kind of started rather organically. I didn't give any kind of indication that we were starting the interview because we just started talking about the game, and it just kind of melded into the interview. So as a result, we kind of start in the middle of things here, and Unpacking, as it is a game about unpacking someone's belongings and putting them technically where they belong. Jeff starts off explaining to me how you can get an achievement if you put everything in the wrong place.
Have you heard of the Dark Star?
No.
In the game? Okay, because
No.
you know how you get a star when you finish?
Yes.
So you can also get a Dark Star.
Okay, is that a bad thing?
No. Well, it depends on whatever tickles your fancy.
It's a defiant thing.
It's So basically, what you do is put everything in the wrong place. Right? Put everything in the where it's flashing. Make everything flash, and you get the Dark Star.
Amazing.
And then what you should do is what was that? You should put everything in the wrong place, and then do that on all the levels, and you get a little surprise at the end with the ending song. So
good.
Yeah, little Easter egg on the music front. I don't think there's actually anything else. It's just more it's a musical Easter egg. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
Definitely, 100%. I mean,
and you feel quite rebellious while doing it too, because you're just making a mess of every place. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. So just full disclosure, this friend of mine and I went to there's a really great place up in Northeast Minneapolis called Centro, where you can get, authentic tacos and stuff. And every once in a while she's like, let's get a picture of margaritas. And I'm like, no, this always ends badly for all of us. Let's not do this. And so somehow we end up back here and we're playing Unpacking, and she's playing it for the first time. She's like, I have to play this game. And so the first thing she tried to do was put the Simon game under the pillow. She's like, this is where I always kept my Simon game. And of course it doesn't let you do that. And she was she was like pissed. Yeah. And I'm like,
wow.
Who does that? I'm like, that's not normal. Like
that is not normal.
No, that's not normal.
There are certain things you can put under the pillow, but
maybe it was too big. Yeah.
I think that as far as gameplay goes, Ren and Tim, who sort of designed the game. The way they describe it is you're playing as this character, you're revealing this character by unpacking their things. And so you can have some personal preference of where you put things as long as it fits within the character's
scope,
personal preference.
Yes.
So that's where you meet your limitation. Although I believe there is a mode where you can just put.
You can turn all that off and just put anything anywhere.
Put anything anywhere.
Oh God. Okay, I will have to tell her that.
That's yet another setting, I think. Yeah,
it is.
Okay.
But it's a way of actually keeping that narrative. It's like, why can't I put that there?
Yes.
So then you start to think, why can't I? And obviously, maybe not in that instance, but in other instances of why can't I put that there? That tells you a little bit about the character or the person she's living with.
Yes.
And that
or
sort of
not living
thing.
with anymore, right?
Yeah,
Because you
exactly.
can't put the picture up on the bulletin board. And I'm like, why can't I put this pic? And then I'm like, oh, well, duh.
Yeah.
That's why I can't put the picture up on the bulletin board.
No,
it's brilliant. It's
because the
brilliant.
boyfriends. Yeah.
But seriously, what a great concept. And all of the things in that game really do hit just all the right heartstrings in terms of it being Zen, but also all the audio is absolutely fantastic. And I would love to, let's dive into that because,
sure,
obviously it's fairly well known now how many thousands of Foley sounds there are, 14,000-ish. And that's insane. But I also love your dedication to making those things sound real in the 3D, in the pixel artness of it. So would you talk about that decision and let's start there.
It's definitely Jeff. Yeah.
I remember when looking at the game in its sort of early prototype form and looking at the pixel art, I did consider that. We've already decided we're going to do chiptunes music. And I thought maybe we should do chip sound effects, like using the square wave and the noise generator and make that, do it that way. And it could have been kind of cool, to do it that way. And in fact, in my GDC talk, I kind of give an example of what that could have sounded like. But then, it sort of dawned on me that wouldn't it be interesting if because there was sort of a lack of detail in the art because of the pixel art is sort of impressionistic, right? And so our minds are filling in some of the detail that's missing, and that's what makes pixel art charming, right? But wouldn't it be interesting if the audio had no limitations and that it was as beyond detailed, you know what I mean? To the point where it was like excessively detailed, like heavily handed, right? I thought that would be a really neat juxtaposition, between those two things. And as soon as we put in our first pass of some placeholder sounds, it felt really nice. And it was when I realized that, but everything has to make a different sound depending on the surface, which makes sense. I just didn't know to what degree. But what I realized is having that difference was incredibly satisfying just on a fundamental level, because things sounded as they should. And I think what's happened because of Unpacking is people have become aware of the concept of Foley when they were never really aware of it before.
Yeah.
And that's because most games, they have, equally detailed, but I'm sure there's other games that have 14,000 Foley files in them, like footsteps and clothing movement and different footstep surfaces and all this sort of stuff. But it's buried under this layer of gunshots and voices and music and mayhem. You know what I mean? And so Unpacking, just the nature of the game, has all this audible space for people to really experience it and notice the subtle difference. It's like, oh wait, that sounds exactly the way it's supposed to, and it's like far out. That was sort of the thought process into choosing to go that direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say psychologically, I'm not a psychologist.
Full disclosure.
But when Jeff said that, when we look at pixel art, our minds fill in the detail. I think that really natural sound also filled in that detail. It made these things feel really real, gave them actual, like almost contact, like, and so it made the whole environment really organic, and that's what I think. That's where the dedication came in. That's what we were chasing in the end. Was that really organic and natural variance sort of thing.
Right. So, a standard object, and, it makes sense. I loved how you break it down. And I don't mean to keep bringing up this talk. Everyone should definitely watch this talk if they want to know more about the sound in the game. But I found it really fascinating how, you kind of could generalize certain objects, right? Like, light metal or whatever, an object that doesn't weigh very much but is metal, or a medium weight object that's metal or something. And you could kind of, make those share some sounds, and then some objects had more special sounds added to them and whatnot.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. We had we had the generic objects, which you're describing there, and we had the hero objects, as we called them. Yeah. And the reason why we did the generic stuff was to save our minds and not go insane. Right. And that was because, my initial declaration was, we will record absolutely everything on every surface. On every surface. And I decreed it, put it on the wall. We're doing this. And then Ange went, she did the calculations and she said, Jeff, are you kidding me? Like, that's going to be 75,000 files.
Finish this game in a few years.
And
do you think, I don't mean to interrupt, but do you think, Jeff, that you would have continued on with that plan unless she had done the calculations and been like, yo, you cannot...
being willing to pick up and do the bowling.
Right.
I'd like to think that I would have come to my senses, but more often than not, Ange saves me in those situations. So I think she talked a lot of common sense in that, and obviously we did some tests. And sure enough, I think what really saved us there is because we were recording a lot of variations of the same thing. In other words, when we did light metal, we recorded at least 10 variants of it. And there's these subtle differences between the 10 variations. Yes. And when those 10 variants are representing possibly 20 different items, those little variants are enough to trick us into thinking that there's a unique sound for each one of them.
Sure.
So, yeah.
That's incredible.
Further to that, we did have the generics. And when we say we had generics, we had a lot. For example, glass, there was glass extra light, glass medium, glass heavy, glass extra heavy. So there's 5 generics for glass where,
right.
Then we had items that were completely unique. They had to be recorded on every surface, like cutlery. You can't get away with not recording that on every surface. But then we had these other items which have a generic component and have a unique component. And then when we discovered that we could combine those two, use the generics recorded on every surface and the unique component just recorded with its 10 variations once, and we actually triggered both those sounds together. So, for example, the piggy bank or the hot water bottle, or there's a whole lot of them, supplement bottle.
We added a sweetener.
It's a sweetener. And so that also allowed us to really bring down the number of
things we had to record.
Files we had to record. Yeah. When I came on board and we realized that this thing was just growing astronomically, when Jeff asked me to do it, my whole thought was about process. It was just about yes, don't get me wrong, I wanted it to sound good, but it was also about how are we actually going to do this, and what are all the different things we can employ to bring the number down but still make it sound really varied. And then in the actual recording and the actual processing and editing and implementing, Jeff came up with all the tricks, and especially in the implementing phase, but we employed so many different things that were batch driven that, like, for example, we didn't name 14,000 files. We had this process for naming files that would just go and you just watch this magic process happen. And those sorts of things were what I was really focused on, and just keeping the data from becoming chaotic and really, really organized.
All those years of managing spreadsheets in play-by-play.
Yeah, and folders and folder structures, file structures. So in the end, that was really where my focus was. And then just sort of making those systems work to our advantage so that we could really have a lot of maneuverability with the sound. There was in the end, Jeff can talk to you about the spreadsheet that we had, but it wasn't like as you recorded everything, it was like, okay, that is definitely going to be the sound that we use for that item. Sometimes you would put things in game and be like, that's not working. That actually doesn't sound right. And so rather than just tottering off and recording yet another few hundred files, you might play around with what you've got. And so we had this spreadsheet that we could allocate things and it would change it in real time. And and you could just play it straight back and see how that was working in the game. And that gave me a lot of autonomy. I didn't have to keep bothering Jeff, and Jeff didn't have to keep bothering the lead programmer.
Sure.
So I could, and so anytime as well that someone asked for a bazillion changes, or you kind of get a list of things that this isn't sounding right to other people. Yeah. It wasn't like this, I'm going to pull my hair out situation. It was like, oh, well, I'll just play around with what we've got until everyone's happy.
Yeah. That's amazing. And when I saw too that you put everything in one session, which, makes sense, but I mean, when
it's it's a bit crazy in a way too.
It's insane, because when I edit this podcast, the very first thing I do is I edit the audio that I use for the video. And then I start over. Like, I am not gonna, because, I'll take out every time I cough or clear my throat or whatever. So there's all these gaps in my audio, right? And if I try to remember that that's the case after wherever I'm editing, I'll mess it up. I will mess it up at some point, So if I start moving stuff around, that's when I start messing stuff up and shifting entire tracks or something, So that's incredible.
Yeah, the Reaper file was
that was
the
insane.
Reaper file was insane, and I actually think it has a strange beauty. Like
it does. I 100% agree with you.
And just starting at that zoomed out view where it almost just looks like some lines. Yeah. And you start to realize as you come in and in and in and in and in and in that there's 14,000.
Incredible.
But they're all delineated with these regions, and I just love going in there because you can just say, you can just sort of move around that. It gave us this ability to move around that data really easily.
Well, that was the main
searchable, and
to reference each other, you could listen to this object versus this object, and you didn't have to switch to a different file to get to do that. It was all about immediate comparison so we could make sure everything was balanced correctly, sounding like they're in the same universe, so to speak. You know what I mean? Also, because it's all there, it was easier for all the batch processes as well.
For naming and
rendering.
We could have had multiple Reaper files and categorized things, and probably the batches would have probably still worked. But I don't know, I do like having everything in one place. That's just sort of how my mind works with stuff. I do it with other sound design as well. Like if I'm working on a game, I'll have a file called a Reaper file called UI sound effects, and all of the sound UI sounds are in this one Reaper file because I want to know how they all sound in relation to each other.
Sure.
Right. And and that's what I don't do that with music though. I don't try and have I delineate that by song,
There are people, because I was just having this conversation with another composer, and he was telling me about the composer Will Roget, and that's what Will does. He'll do like Call of Duty or like Mortal Kombat, huge AAA game, and put it all in one session. And I'm like, how long does that take to open? Like, I don't even know. I don't think my 2013 Mac could open that session. Like, it would just crash immediately.
I get it. I mean, I remember I actually did music in a movie, a small movie once, and that was actually how I approached it, to compose against the whole movie. And I thought it was okay to do it that way up until every time I tried to render the file out, I was using Cubase at the time, it would crash. It would crash while rendering. So I had to cut it all up in the end anyways.
My CPU, I can't.
Yeah.
Well, if it's okay, can we talk about the music for a while? Because I mean, and we'll come back to sound and stuff. And I just, the soundtrack is so wonderful for so many reasons. So, talk about conceptually, where you decided to start and just some of the musical decisions you made right off the bat with the game.
Yeah. Well, after talking with Ren and Tim, they were, we kind of pretty quickly went down the decision to have chiptunes style genre, but also have acoustic guitar in there, and that was decided right from the get-go. And the reasoning was, and the way I sort of justified it all or aligned it is that the chiptunes represented the pixel art, and the acoustic guitar represented the main character of the game, and acoustic guitar has that real folky, sincere, homey feeling to it. It's really really organic, and it's you can sort of push people's emotional buttons with it, I find. Yes. I mean, the piano does that as well, but the acoustic guitar, there's just something about it, and so that was how we sort of decided to start, and that's where we've decided to start. And the theme song to Unpacking was the first thing that I tried to write using this setup, and it was strange. It was one of those songs that kind of I started writing it, and it was more or less done in like 3 hours. And
that's incredible.
Which it was like really short amount of time, and this fairly cohesive song came, and it actually, if you listen to that song, it kind of plays and it feels like it sort of jumps off a cliff at the end, because it sort of ends, but it also kind of asks a question at the end. And I think I was thinking that I might put an ending on the song, and then it's sort of organically I left it like that, and I just got used to hearing it like that, and then I went, okay, actually, yeah, that's the ending. and then moving forward on the music, I realized that the music had to evolve and kind of tie in with the personal journey of the main character, and this character ends up having other characters in her life, and so I decided that I would add new instruments to the music that would represent these new characters coming into her life. And at one point, there's a partner that she moves in with, and the electric guitar enters the sound, and that it's actually kind of funky electric guitar, and that song's called Infatuation, and that's when she moves in with her first partner, to kind of support the narrative there that she's infatuated with this guy. But then in the next level, there's electric guitar, but it's definitely a different mood now. And actually, I sort of broke the rules a little bit, and I made some of the synth, some of the chiptune synth represent the main character. And there's this sort of question answer melody that happens in the song.
My Own Way.
What did I call it? Not after the one after
Is it My Own Way?
No,
okay.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on it.
No, that's okay.
Can't even remember my own music.
Is it the one? I've got the soundtrack right here.
Yeah, it's the one after Infatuation.
Pretentious, the one that's in 7?
No. Okay, so that one, that's another story. It's not Pretentious.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
The one after
Lost
that.
and Found.
Yeah, Lost and Found.
Lost and Found.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, so that
no
one
problem.
is the one that has there's this melodic interplay that happens, and really what it is it's them having an argument.
Okay.
And they're going back and forth, and it starts in one mood, but actually they start to play together and they start harmonizing. And my thinking, this is what's going on in my head, is that it was an argument, but they've come to resolve it, and they at the end of the day they've realized they're not right for each other, but will remain friends. Like it's a harmonious ending, right? And that's the way it ends. But it was nice kind of going through the journey of their little relationship in that song, So, anyways,
and
that
to have
track,
a discussion. Sorry.
Go ahead.
A musical discussion rather than dialogue in the.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely amazing. And I love in that track too, there's a couple of hints between major and minor, right? You throw in a major third every once in a while and you're like, there's sunshine, but then it kind of turns melancholy again. That's really beautiful. Yeah, I loved that in that track.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So now we mentioned we mentioned pretentious. So
that just made me laugh so hard that it's in 7 and it's called Pretentious. I got the biggest kick out of that.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad somebody got the joke, because which is awesome. So basically there's on the soundtrack there's like the longer songs, which were the background tracks for each of the levels, but in between each of them is this short little song, which was the song from the radio that you could play in that level. Every level has some sort of music player, and that evolves over time. Initially, it's a cassette deck, and then I think actually Pretentious you play on a record player. Actually, there's another subtle bit of humor in there, is that there's actually 2 music players in that level, and really? You can play Pretentious. You play that song. It's both on vinyl and on the CD player. He's bought the same album, both on album and on CD, right? Because he's just a huge fan of these guys.
Oh, I love that.
But the point of those shorter songs, was to represent the music that the main character was into at that time, right? So in the very first level on the cassette deck, she plays something that sounds a little bit like Aqua. Right, that was what I was going for. I Like Water is Aqua, and then she's in the next level. She's discovered kind of a bit more folkier music. She's kind of left her techno pop behind her. She gets into folky stuff, and the song "Pretentious" is actually not so much her song, but it's her partner's song that he likes listening to, because he likes his prog rock,
and it's in his apartment, and Jeff calls him the most hated boyfriend on the internet.
A lot of people hate him. Really.
Seriously, when I did figure out that you couldn't put that picture on the bulletin board, I was like, good. You deserve to be stuffed in a drawer or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
That's so good. And also, let's talk about the implementation of the music, because there's no looping, right? Like a track will play and the whole track will play, and then there'll just be for sometimes gaps of silence, and then music will come back. So talk about the decision to implement in that way.
Yeah, and like that's just a personal preference of mine. I don't really like looping music. I find after a while it's just like it's relentless, and I like giving people a break, and in an ideal world I would have maybe tried to write more songs per level, but time didn't allow that. So what I just thought I would do is let the song play, let it finish, let it stop and be silent, and let the player enjoy just the sound of the ambience. And because you might not hear the subtle ambient stuff that's going on otherwise, so give them a chance to hear that, and then start the song again. And maybe in another ideal world I would have made the music somewhat algorithmic, and maybe change a little bit each repeat or something. Again, I didn't end up having the time to do that. So, but this seemed like a good thing. And if people have listened to other games that I've been in charge of the audio, that this is a reoccurring theme with my music, or at least my implementation, is that I like giving people a break from the music, and I typically put in at least a minute or two of no music, where possible, and that's just the way I like having things in games, because I personally I don't like it when I'm not given a break, unless it's a game where, like it wouldn't be appropriate in like a racing game or, you know what I mean? Or in Cactus, this other game I worked on, Cactus, it loops in there as well, and it's unrelenting, but the game is unrelenting. So, yeah.
And also you did so much work, like you said, there's so much subtlety in the environmental ambience, and it, like the Foley, is about creating a reality to these physical spaces, to these rooms.
Kind of tells a bit of a story, actually, itself, doesn't it?
And Jeff puts so much subtlety in there. Sometimes we get, the occasional message from someone saying, I was just playing this level and I heard the neighbor walk overhead, like the floorboards overhead. Or, I heard they must live near a train station. I heard a train, or I heard a plane, or the neighbor's sprinkler, or and all of that. I think you put so much detail and experience actually in knowing how to place it, where to place it. I think I just think I'd like to say that Jeff's many years in games brought to this game a real sensibility that, if you were young and enthusiastic, you might have just jammed too much in there and wanted to have everything going on all at once.
Yeah.
And I think that Jeff's sort of how to lay that back on every layer of the audio is sort of testament to his many years of experience, all sort of coming to this.
I think you're saying I'm old.
We're old, honey. We're old.
Yeah.
Between us, we're over 100.
Well, and of course your 14,000 sounds, it includes all of that ambience too, right? I mean, the footsteps overhead or things like that.
It does. Well, the environmental ambience and all the positional audio. Jeff handled all of that, and that in itself has that's not actually the 14,000.
That's not part of the 14,000.
Oh, that's different. Okay. Wow. And that's amazing.
That's that's what I'm saying. It's yet another layer to bringing that whole organic thing to sort of that organic ambience that really makes this space that's really just a drawing feel real. Mm-hmm. Feels like I've got neighbors. Mm-hmm. Feels like I can hear someone calling out to dad, sorry, I didn't mean to actually take you off the music thing, but when you were saying you were leaving space for that, I just wanted to sort of to talk,
Yeah. Well, I think too, though, that the space thing also applies to the music, because the music, there's some of the tracks have like this really free feel to them, whether it's through, kind of quote unquote abnormal phrase lengths, or, maybe some added beats and some bars here and there just to kind of stretch things out and give it this really like organic feel to the melodies too. So space, I think, is important in many aspects of your work in this game.
I agree. And I mean, like, because, I tried not to make things too busy. You definitely didn't. And which makes it fairly easy to listen to in the background, there's a few spots where I added melody, which, I would say, I wonder if that's going to get grating over time. That's always my concern when I'm writing music. And what I find is if you write music that's like a texture, you can listen to it for hours, because it's just, You know what I mean? Nothing pops out. It's just tones evolving and stuff. And I've done stuff like that for other games, like maybe Hand of Fate and what have you. But and the temptation was to do that here too. But then there's also it also becomes a bit less memorable then, you know, because it's the melodies that you connect with. So it's like, okay, well, let's have a melody, but try and have as much space as possible around it and still be musical, I guess, to a degree.
Yeah.
So,
and just the many times where you'll have two lines just kind of play together, sometimes just completely disparate instruments. Like one favorite is My Own Way, where the guitar and the synth play separately, but then they join and they do just like every once in a while they'll harmonize together and just that interplay. It's really sweet and endearing.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's it just felt, you know, like I guess a lot of the music also just came from being inspired by the game and by the story and by Tim and Ren. I mean, like the game came from them falling in love and Tim moving in with Ren, and it was literally, you know, Ren was helping Tim unpack boxes, and none of the boxes were labeled, and there's random stuff in each box. You know, and she went this, and finding places to put stuff felt like Tetris. And the random stuff, and she said, "This feels like a game," and they just started jamming on the idea, and so that, and I love how the whole game has come out of such an organic thing as a couple people falling in love. And then it's something really organic, but also like moving. All of us have had do it, you know. Like we've all done it, and we all have our own stories, and they're fundamental. Moving is like we measure our lives by each move. You know what I mean?
Oh
like that they are our the bookmarks in our lives, right? It's like, okay, that's when I lived here, and that's when I lived here, and obviously there's always a move at the beginning and end of each one. So you know, it's no wonder. It not only was it inspiring for us to build this game, but it's inspiring people playing it, and they getting this intense connection with it, you know. So
a lot of people say that it really resonates with, it makes them very either sentimental if they're a particular age, particularly say some of the items and things.
Oh, for sure. The GameCube,
but also the whole concept of particularly say the items that carry forward, the items that she keeps. It can make people, you know, it really taps into people's own experience, and so they're layering their experience on playing the game, and so it sort of doubles its emotional bang, I guess. I mean, there were so many objects that I pulled out, and I was like, is that oh my God, it is. Yes. Let's put this here or whatever, you know? Friends for Life, another track that I love. It's already become kind of like my summer jam in a way. It's just, it's so perfect for this time of year where I am. And I just absolutely love the mood changes in well, all of the tracks really, but in this track in particular, when the arpeggiated synth comes in, I just love that change. So tell me a little bit about that track, if you would.
Well, Friends for Life, like I guess with each of these songs, like I knew the context of what our character was doing. So she's moving in with her first set of roommates after having lived by herself in some university dorm or something. So she and these are her besties, you know, her best friends. They moved in together, and they're all very compatible because they're all into similar things. You know, they're into playing board games and playing video games, and yet all of her friends have slightly different interests. So you see some different things in the house. And I just thought about like a similar experience that I had where I moved in with my roommates earlier in life, and you do become these lifelong friends with those people, you know, and I'm sure we all have had that experience where, you know, you just, the type of friendship that you have with these people, you have for life, you know? And so that was the headspace I put myself in. And then for some reason, like, I just thought of a song that I guess I had a vision of these girls moving in together and having fun and, you know, moving and but maybe they would start, you know, dancing around and, you know, doing the conga or something. I don't know what I was thinking in my head, like something fun and goofy and, you know, youthful and I just wanted, and I also wanted it to have a feeling of sitting in the backyard with friends at a barbecue, and it's chilled and it's relaxing. You have your arm around your buddy, or you know what I mean, and that, because the song kind of goes through a couple of different moods like that. It's like it's fun and poppy, but it's also a bit sentimental, I think is the word I was looking for. So that was sort of the thinking behind it.
Yeah, love that one. You know, if we can jump back to sounds for a minute, I will say that you know, and the more I've kind of thought about it as I've thought about Foley, well, that makes me think of 10 things I want to say all at once. So I interviewed the sound designers, all the audio team for the VR Half-Life game that came out in 2020. And I remember Roland Shaw, one of the sound designers, saying he made 4,000 physics sounds. So that's just physics sound, not monster or creature, whatever. And I don't think he includes footsteps, but I still think that sounds relatively low. But, you know, I'm like, and that's a big game. I mean, I don't know how many hours, but it's, you know, 8 to 10 hours or something like that. So I think, you know, you did have quite an uphill climb with all the things you needed to do for the game. But with regards to, you know, all the objects, I know that you really tried to stay quite literal with, if you're picking up a cup, you wanted to actually have a cup or something like that. But what were some of the unusual things that just didn't work and you're like, we need to use something else here? Can you, I mean, there must have been examples.
I can tell you, I'm going to have trouble referencing it back unless Jeff boots up the spreadsheet right now. But one of the items, one of the generic items that I recorded that, to my surprise, at the end of the day, if you sorted the spreadsheet by allocated audio IDs, which was separate to the actual game item, that we used a lot was what I called device light. And device light was originally made for small things like pieces of hardware, like, you know, game controllers or that sort of thing. Okay. Or even a small handheld, you know, gaming device. But what ended up happening was it was really, really suitable for all of those things that just fell between all the cracks of defying what they are. So, it literally gets used sometimes for, say, a personal grooming product in a bathroom, or something in a kitchen, or something from the office. This particular sound really got utilized.
What was one of the things though that we were like, we were looking for the sound, and reality didn't sound right.
Yeah.
And so we went, let's mimic what we hear in our heads. I'm just trying to remember. I feel like there was one that we did.
Should have prepared this.
Yeah. We probably should have thought about that earlier.
I should have scrolled through
sent you my questions.
But I do know one thing while you're trying to remember that. One thing I do know is that we did have to get creative with the surfaces themselves. So I did go to the hardware store and buy a small piece of bench top so that we could place things on bench top.
Sure.
And we used a cupboard drawer turned upside down, and that was the sound of that was shelf. And then we used for putting stuff on sink or things that sounded sink.
We used a cookie tray.
We used a cookie tray turned upside down as well.
And it was all to do with how we sort of padded and muffled them.
Yeah, well, they were all padded so that you could focus. The sound was definitely the surface you're putting it on, not the surface that our fake surface was sitting on.
And you know what I mean? Because you can't actually just go to the ground and record this on tile, because we needed to be in a controlled space, so we still had to bring it into a recorded. But we did have a tile though, so we used certain
things you could, because it wasn't too hard.
And then linoleum was the trickiest, because a linoleum floor, and there's so many different kinds of linoleum actually, and whether it's padded or not, and it sort of has that sound to me anyway. It's like okay, so I in the end went and bought, it's hilarious, I went and bought a like a placemat for a table. Okay. But the one that I found that I liked the sound of the most was shaped in this big green monstera leaf. It was actually cut out in this shape. And so that was linoleum. And in fact, I have to say that was probably your least favorite surface. It was the surface we had a lot of trouble with recording because
it's a weird one.
Even though to get that sound, you actually have a lot of contact, and it sort of ends up being a little bit almost like boomy, or we did probably struggle with that sound, that surface the most, which is hilarious because you would think it would have been one of the really resonant, like sync or something something metallic. But the problem with surfaces like metallic was we needed all of these sounds to be incredibly short, because when you don't want really long sounds with long tail, because you want, when people pick things up and put them down, you want the sound to happen so that there's no latency and it feels. Sorry.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that, the animation of something getting picked up happens in one frame. Yeah. It's like not picked up, picked up.
Happens.
Like, so you can't have a,
So a lot of the sounds actually have like a ringing, they do have that sort of long tail, which
reverb
we had to sort of cut off, just because metal, glass on a hard surface. But funnily enough, still linoleum was the trick. Was tricky. It was tricky. I can think of some things. The old say, computer and computer monitor and things like that, things that were really heavy. We sort of had to, when you actually really record something like that, it's actually not that big of a sound, because it's all just bottom end really, and so we sort of had to find something in the range of weight that would give that sense of I'm putting down something heavy, but actually didn't sound, because we did try recording, taking a computer and putting it down, and it didn't sound correct.
And we used a food processor.
I think we did. We used the base of our food processor, because it's small and very, very heavy.
But heavy,
it just gave that nice smaller sound, sorry, when I say small, I mean compact, like neat.
Shorter.
And so that's an example. And then there were some very tricky things that I thought were going to be so difficult to record, but were so satisfying, and they were simple in the end. And I just loved them. Like the, those rubber suction mats you put into a bathtub.
Yes.
When I was dreading recording that, I was thinking, this is just going to be the hardest thing ever. And the hardest thing actually was the performance of that, because every single item had to be performed, and it was sort of like a workout, because you had to sort of have everything in position with where the microphone is, where the contact point is. So anything big, you can't just bang it down. It's sort of it has to be it has to land just so. And quite often when you put things down carefully, you get that dum.
Yes.
And no, we just needed the done. Occasionally you will find a couple of dums in there if they're quick.
Yeah.
Technical speak.
This is my technical speak.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the rubber mat, so every time I wanted to record it especially on a hard surface, I had to push down all the little suction caps.
Yeah.
and it wasn't like I could just, rip through the recording, like, because you had to keep pushing them down, getting them all ready. And then when you do it, if you didn't get it right, but in the end, I was really delighted with how that turned out.
Yeah. That one's satisfying. Yeah.
It was quite satisfying.
Yeah, definitely. And also too, it's helpful to remember, this is something I never thought of. You're not just setting it down, but you're picking it up too, which are two totally different sounds in most cases, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting one too, because like you'll notice, like, if you pick up something in reality, I just picked up my phone completely silently.
Yeah.
But if we had phones in the game, there would be a pickup sound, and it's there. It's and I mean, if I picked up the phone lazily and dragged it, then it makes a sound, obviously. And so the pickup sounds are there also as a UI sound, as
indicator.
An indicator. It's positive feedback that you've done the thing you want to do. Sure. So it's fun because.
But having said that, they are actually the sound of the item, but it's performed sort of, if I use my unpacking mug. If you've placed it down, when we pick it up, there's like a little
swish,
scrape or drag or something.
Yeah.
Unless it's an item that has its own very unique, it's going to rattle or.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
like the pencil cup or something like that. Yeah. Or the piggy bank or whatnot.
But possibly to make everything natural as well, we did record the places and the pickups in the one in every single recording. So you put down place, pick up, place, pick up.
Okay.
So you do that. And in hindsight, like, because we used dynamic split in Reaper to sort of do a first pass for editing, so that everything's already found and put into its nice little individual items. But those pickup sounds, that did make that a little bit difficult sometimes on quiet items, because of a dynamic split would easily find the place sound.
The loud transient.
Sure.
But the pickup sounds would so you had to find. Maybe?
Okay.
Yes. So sometimes you sort of had to find that middle ground and or do a bit of manual. Everything got topped and tailed manually in the end, because, like we were saying, every sound had to be short and responsive, and I think then you not only did you have to manually touch every one, but listen to it to make sure that that's not going to sound, there's no little click on the end or that actually still sounds like the item, because when you start to shorten things, it can sort of suddenly not sound like, they take away its defining characteristic even.
Sure. Now who was the singer on the soundtrack?
There's a few.
Okay, there are more. Okay, because one Ren. Does Ren sing?
Ren sings the credit song at the end.
Okay, so she does have a very lovely voice. But then who sings on? Yeah, so who sings on "It's Not You"?
That's my daughter, Ella. Yep. Okay. She sang it. And but so I wrote this song, and actually at one point I was going to sing it, but it made sense that it was her, because we were kind of going for an Avril Lavigne kind of vibe with that song. So so that was her. And then there's a song called Yeah Nah.
Yes.
And that's me. That's yours truly.
Okay.
Doing that sort of a
nice. Yeah, I wondered.
Punky thing, whatever that was. It was a lot of fun, actually.
And then there's some really lovely like remixes and stuff on the soundtrack album that I really enjoyed, particularly with Sunset. There's just so many. There's a handful of versions of it, and I just love this track for its mood changes and how sometimes I think it's fair to say that the mark of a good piece of music is that you can play it on whatever you want. Like, like
Mm-hmm.
Bach, it sounds good on a trumpet or on a harpsichord, right? Or on a
right.
guitar or a banjo or whatever. And that's what I love about Sunset too, because then at the end of the soundtrack, you have this beautiful piano version. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, the piano version is very dear to my heart because and so the one it's called Sunset, My Little Waltz.
Yeah.
So My Little Waltz was a song that my dad wrote. And it's the very first part of that song he wrote, and he used to play that to me when I was a kid. And I didn't know what it was called, and I just knew he would play it, and I always loved the sound of it. And when it came to writing this song for the final level, I just thought, it'd be nice to pull that out and use that song and share it with people in a way, because it was only this song that I don't know if anybody would have ever heard. I don't know if my dad ever played it to anybody else. And actually I remember he sent me the sheet music to it to play, to give to my daughter Ella to play. I have it somewhere. But anyways, I decided to put it in this game, and then I thought it because it's like the last level of the game, the song needed to be fairly long, and I wanted it to go through a bunch of different moods and feel like you've gone on this big journey, and riding off into the sunset at the end, that was sort of what I was thinking. And then in the end, I think because that level is so long, I decided to make a remix of it that would play. So when you're playing the game, it'll play one version, and then after that 2 minutes of silence we were talking about earlier, then it'll play the remix version of it, and then 2 seconds of silence again, or 2 minutes of silence, and play the other one. The version called My Little Waltz, that one isn't in the game itself. It's only on the soundtrack. Okay. And the reason why that is that thing we're talking about, things being too busy, being a bit irritating. And I found after I put in that, so that was the original version of the song, the one called My Little Sunset, My Little Waltz. That was originally in the game, but I decided to simplify it and make it just simpler sounding, I guess, less busy. And that's the version, the one that's just called Sunset. That's the one that's actually in the game. And then and then like I said, there's a little remix version as well. And so that's why there's 3 versions of that song. Okay. But the one with My Little Waltz, that was the original version, and I really wanted to release that and have that out because it's got that moment that my dad wrote in there,
I love it. I'm so glad you did put it on there.
Tribute to him.
I don't know if you I don't know how deeply you want to go into all of this, but Jeff's dad, why don't you tell a little bit about your...
Well, my dad used to work for Roland.
Cool. Okay.
Making, he used to be like one of their sort of product designers, and design new technology for them. And he invented his own musical sequencer in a digital sequencer in the early 70s. He ended up selling his design to Roland, and their first sequencer, called the Microcomposer, was based off of his design, which is cool. So my dad was very musical himself, but not only was he musical, but he was an electronics engineer, and also he became a programmer as well. So he was had a very interesting career himself, and is worthy of his own show, I would say. But through him, I got to meet all sorts of really interesting people that he worked with. So he used to work with like Toto and Michael Jackson and all these crazy hugely successful and interesting people. And so my background is following my dad, going to these studios of these people and watching him do cool stuff. Mm-hmm. So needless to say, I got inspired by all that. So.
Well, and I mean, let's just continue on the path then, because your daughter Ella has followed in both of your footsteps as well in this video game audio music endeavor. So talk about a little bit about her, if you're willing. Even though she's not here, I hope she wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Oh, she wouldn't mind at all. No, Ella is amazing. She has been into creating music since an early teenager. You know, we always made sure that she had piano or keyboard or some sort of musical technology, and encouraged her to be creative and feel free with it. Like, it doesn't have to be music, you know. She's dabbled in a lot of different things, and she's quite a good visual artist, and she's also she's working on her own video production at the moment, and she's very sort of multi-talented, multimedia, you know, kind of individual. And so she ended up going to uni and studying music production, and did very well there. And currently she's working at Replica, doing AI generated voices.
Cool.
And really interesting stuff, you know. And so I was very busy on Unpacking, but at the same time I'm involved with Forts, and the guys needed me to write music for Forts on their next DLC, and I said I didn't have the time, and so I asked Ella if she would do it, and gave me an opportunity to do a bit of mentoring with her. And cool. She wrote all this awesome music for this game, and it's out, and she's released a soundtrack, and now she's writing music for this video production that she's doing, where she's using Minecraft to basically produce a series, and actually Ange is involved with that too. Yeah. What's that thing?
It's a cinematic series. It's an origin story that Ella's written, and we use replay mods to create all the footage, and cool. It's quite this detailed thing. Ella, I think it started originally, I guess I did a lot of video production when Ella was a child. I was doing a lot of video stuff. Just it worked out better being a mum than having to go overseas and record dialogue for a game, or so I sort of, for quite a few years, I was doing a lot of video stuff. So she sort of grew up doing both music and video, so she has that real sense, and she has that innate understanding of how visuals and sound sit together.
Sure.
She just has that. It's just in her. I don't even know if you can train that, or
right.
But yeah, so I think after she wrote the soundtrack for Forts, which she sort of did straight at, it sort of crossed over with her finishing uni, so she had a lot of uni musical work to do as well.
Sure, yeah.
But she just decided that she wanted to create a vehicle for writing this soundtrack that she had in her head. Cool. So she created this series, and so it's too much work for one person. She's definitely the producer and the director and the composer and the everything, but I pick up and help her out with some of the nitty gritty. That's just too much work.
So I think she launches that. It's called Minecraft Creators, and it launches on July 2nd, I believe.
Oh, cool.
So
the trailer's hanging out there, I think, already. She put that out. Yeah. Maybe, nice. I think.
Yeah.
But and then in her actual real job, where she gets paid. She's also doing sound design and music. That company is trying to sort of move towards doing game development. And so they'd employed her to manage voice actors and the implementation process of voice actors into their sort of AI software that creates a character voice where you can type in anything and it says it in that voice and in different emotional contexts.
That's incredible.
But then they discovered that she doesn't really tell. She doesn't go to work and go, well, I released a soundtrack today.
Yeah.
So then as they discovered that, they're like, oh, you can write music for us. You can do this for us. You can do that for us. So
nice.
she's we're really proud.
For sure.
She's 21 and she's
smashing it.
She's
nice.
She's been contributing to games that we've done as a voice actor or doing some sound design or ambient sound or some post-production stuff for us. She's been doing that actually since she was in her early teens, little bits and bobs.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
and with Unpacking, she helped with some of the recording for that.
Yeah, that's right. She started the whole ball rolling with the Foley for Unpacking, and she's a very cool person, and we love her very much.
Oh, that's awesome.
We're like those proud parents.
Yeah.
What an amazing project, though, for you to all have a place in. I mean, it's such a beautiful game, and I've just thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of it. It's just been such a pleasure, and I know I'm not the only one. This game touched a lot of people in a lot of ways, which is really something.
That's awesome.
And I know we've been chatting for a long time here now, but I really do think it is important to just, if we can, just briefly talk about how you did end up where you are, because, you both have been in this industry for a long time, which, after I think, if somebody says, well, I got into the industry in the 90s, you're like, okay, you're a legend. Like, that's pretty awesome. So just talk about that if you would.
To get into the industry, well, just before getting into the industry, I was in a lot of pop bands in Vancouver, trying to make it as a pop star. I had aspirations to be, I don't know what it was I wanted to be, but I bleached my hair blonde, and it was the 80s. What can I say? But none of that really went anywhere. I was living the life of a very typical starving, struggling musician. And but I knew I had the ability to create and produce music. And I was and I was occasionally getting a gig where I'd produce a song for somebody, or, and I had those kind of skills of running a studio, using synths, using drum machines, sequencers and stuff. And then found out there was a job at Electronic Arts Canada. This is in 1992. And I'll skip past the story of actually getting hired and all that, but I got hired there in 92 and so the first game I worked on was NHL PC. So what this was the PC port of the NHL hockey games that were on the Sega Genesis. Okay. And so my first job there was to do the sound effects on that game. And then the next thing I was asked to do was a game called Skitchin. Now, Skitchin was a game where you are wearing rollerblades and you grab onto the back of a car and start going really fast at the back of a car and swing yourself off of one car and grab onto another one and fight and punch and whatever. And they said they wanted the music to be like heavy grunge rock kind of music. And like to this point, I had never really written music like that. I was always like electronic music guy, hadn't worked on a lot of heavy music. But they asked me to do this. And so one of the designers inundated me with like heavy grunge music of the time, and so this was like Rage Against the Machine and bands like that. And I was really enjoying that music. And And I started writing stuff along those lines, and I realized I had all this sort of pent up heavy rock music inside of me that needed to get out. So I found my inner rock, Nice, so that was actually a lot of fun to do. So I started on that and did a bunch of EA Sports games and evolved with the industry, going from really early, FM synth, square wave generators, the old Sega Genesis machines, and really just limited hardware, the Super Nintendo, and then came the CD-ROM, and then all of a sudden we could go back into the studio again and produce normal music, and it's funny, like it's funny what we used to call, like what we call chip tunes now is what we used to call video game music, but now it's become a genre called chiptunes.
Yep.
So it was interesting entering the industry when I did in the early 90s and transitioning with it into the CD music, and then how that improved things. It also kind of, we lost something in that translation as well, because we had less interactivity, which was interesting. But that's getting better now with tools like Wise and Fmod being able to do nice transitions and cuts and what have you. That's sort of, that's how I got into it. And I know that I met Ange at EA, and
in Canada,
in Vancouver, and after the project that she did, that event that you organized, you had some time, and I said, well, hey, can you do this? Are you interested in this sort of thing? I
think actually that the little bridge in between was, I got a contract after I organized the big film video game combination event. I got a job as an executive assistant to, I can't even remember what her title was, but to this lady who was in charge of several departments at EA. And one, I used to have to sit on all the meetings, and
that's right.
Yeah, and so it was all the audio teams, the audio team, because back then you weren't split. All like audio tools, so all of the stuff, like a lot of technical nitty gritty, and I really didn't have that background at all. And she, I think, understood things to a certain point and then didn't. So she's sitting in these meetings, moderating them. I'm taking minutes, and so I would go around, being the person I am. I need to know and understand all of this. And I would go around and say, okay, what did you mean in that meeting when you said this? What is that exactly? And how do you do that? And so I started to really get a sense of what these, audio gods were doing behind their closed doors. And and then that's when I think as well, Jeff and I, we were doing some music together. He already knew that, like, I had what he likes to call good ears.
Yeah. Sure.
And so then, there was this sort of potentially this, and also I'm incredibly organized, able to bring complex things and sort of draw them in and sort of see the path forward with it. So, when we were coming to do play-by-play and doing a lot of stitched speech dialogue, so script had to be written so that it made sense, obviously from a sports point of view, but these were phrases that the commentators would use and feel comfortable and be natural to use, but that they also there were certain events in the actual game, so it all had to line up. And so sort of developing the script and then recording it and editing it, and I didn't actually implement. That was at that point. And that's how I got into that, and I did quite a few sports games, including once we moved to Australia.
Okay.
And then when Ella came along, and during all this time, I would still sort of, whenever I get a chance to go into the studio and sing on a track of Jeff's, I'd be like, pick me, pick me. So then we moved to Australia, and I was still doing that, and had to go overseas, had to go to London to like record Richie Benno for cricket and that sort of thing. But when Ella came along, it's like, I can't just go overseas for a month. You know, I'm a mum. So I sort of moved into a lot of video stuff, and but I continued to work on all of Jeff's soundtracks, and you'll hear me canoodling on probably most of them.
At some point.
And I love that history. I love being able to look back on music that, because Jeff composed a lot at home. So music that, you know, even when we look at video of, say, Ella when she's little, and in the background you can hear Jeff working on, we'll be like, oh, what were you working on? You could hear it leaking out of the studio, you know.
Wow.
And
it's like there's this nice serene, you know, watching a little kid play around, whatever.
Battle music.
Battle music playing in the background.
So no wonder Ella, the osmosis thing.
Yeah.
She never had a chance, did she?
Nope. Doesn't sound like it.
But yeah, I really, really, I think when you're a creative person and when you're a musician, that is always inside you. And to have had these amazing chances to work on Jeff's music, particularly, which I find incredibly inspiring, and then to bring something to it is an incredibly special request, you know. And so I've always taken that pretty seriously. And we've created our own little internet controversies over the years with some of the music we've done. People still, some of the stuff from Rome.
Yeah, we have a song called the Ange wrote called Divinitas, which she sings in, well, it's written
quasi-Latin.
It's
literally just Latin words.
It's Latin words, but spoken with an Aussie accent, which and it semes to have annoyed the entire Latin-speaking world.
Half the world loves
which is no one,
song.
Right?
Half the world loves this song. It's just like, this is the best song ever. And then the other half, still to this day, I think we just put it up on YouTube through Jeff's channel, because lots of other people have had our music,
of course,
floating out there for years. And the argument has, like, this song is 25 years old, and the argument has started again. And it's just like, oh my goodness, people are still
just how bad our pronunciation of the words is, you know. And you get these people going, oh, it should be spoken in another way. This is horrible, you know. And then you get these other people that are saying, oh, but it's a beautiful song and her voice sounds awesome. So, you know, it's just a weird argument between the historical accuracy and
historically informed performance, the hipsters. Yep.
Oh yeah.
And then over the last, however many years, I've sort of been back doing I do everything from placing audio triggers in animations and or whatever Jeff kind of needs me to do. I'm very trainable.
Flexible.
So
looking for work. No.
So that's sort of how my career arcs sort of had that, taking being a mother very seriously as well, sort of tying those two things together. But
amazing. Well, I mean, I just have thoroughly enjoyed all of it, and what a pleasure to talk to both of you. What a treat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, is there anything else you want to say? I mean, I assume you're working on things right now you probably can't talk about, but if there's anything that you've got coming up that you want people to know about.
Yeah. There's Witchbeam is working on another game. Witchbeam made Unpacking. And this game's called Tempopo. And and it's so there's music is what can I say about it? Everything happens in time to the music, which is really nice.
Okay, so rhythm game music.
It's sort of, but it's not really a rhythm game.
Okay.
It's just that, and when it is presented, everything is in time to the music, which is kind of nice. So
cool.
It's going to be a nice, relaxing puzzle game, which is nice.
Cool.
So
okay.
And that I'm not sure when that's coming out, but we're actively working on it. So there's a cool new thing, and I don't know when trailers and stuff will be going out, but I imagine that'll be happening soon. So busy working on that. I'm dabbling with some developing a game myself.
Cool.
You know, wearing a bit more of a not necessarily coding, but I'm doing stuff in Unreal, in blueprints and stuff like that. Having a go, just because, you know, I've worked on a lot of games and I have a lot of game ideas, and it's just not something that I've actually really explored before myself.
Sure.
You know, meet myself as a game designer. Can I do that? I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun finding out. So
cool.
Working on that sort of stuff, yeah, you know, there was a time where I was working on multiple projects simultaneously, and I think I've had enough of doing that. Over the if you look at my release record over the last 5 years, it's been very consistent. And yeah, I think I'm done with doing that much stuff. I'm going to just do just one thing at a time, and just take it a little easier now.
Yeah, we did turn down a big offer recently, but it was a development cycle that was half a decade, and both of us would have been full-time on it, and I think at the end of the day, at our age, we're like, half a decade, that's a long time. So we sort of we just felt we've moved into this indie development space, and that would have been heading back towards the AAA space.
Sure,
and, I think, I think that this works better for us at this stage in our lives.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Gentle. Gentle.
What's the phrase?
Yes.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yes. Right? Exactly.
A younger person told me that.
Yeah, right, like, exactly.
Why are you? Shouldn't I be telling you that?
Oh, well, Jeff and Angela, thank you so much for all your time tonight. This has just been a pleasure again, and I'm so grateful for the game and for both of you and the opportunity to chat with you about it.
Thanks for chatting. It's really nice to talk to you.
And all your lovely comments and intelligent questions.